There is a whisper in the silence of your life, a quiet breath beneath the noise, a sacred pulse beating gently in the unseen. You may not always feel it, but it is there. And though you cannot always see the plan, you must learn to trust it. We live in a world that worships the visible, the explainable, the measured and proven, but the most important parts of life, the turning points, the miracles, the awakenings, arrive in mystery. They come not with a roadmap, but with a whisper, not with a schedule, but with a feeling. And if you are still enough, present enough, humble enough, you will know the plan has always been unfolding perfectly, even through your tears. There is a plan for your life, not one carved in stone by fate, but one made of fluid grace, co-created by your highest self and the divine intelligence that breathes through everything. And this plan, dear soul, is not always revealed to the eyes. It is revealed to the heart. That deeper heart that knows beyond reason, that sacred knowing that lives within your spirit, not your logic. Your ego wants a blueprint. Your soul offers trust. You see, trust is not blind faith. It is inner sight. It is the decision to lean into something greater, even when all you see is darkness. The tree does not panic when winter comes. It does not shake in fear because the leaves are gone. It knows spring is part of the plan. It trusts the unseen cycle. And you too are part of a rhythm far older and wiser than your worries. You have not missed your path. Even your detours have divine fingerprints. Even your heartbreaks were not random, they were sacred interruptions. Gentle, though painful, redirects. For what you call delays may in truth be divine timing, what you call loss may in truth be protection, and what you call failure might just be the very doorway your soul came here to walk through. There is intelligence in the unfolding, a wisdom that stretches beyond your perception. When the caterpillar is dissolving in its cocoon, it cannot imagine the wings. In fact, it feels like death. But transformation often does. To the ego, endings are terrifying, but to the soul, they are sacred, necessary. Birth rarely looks like birth. In the moment, it looks like chaos, like letting go, like everything falling apart. And so, when you're standing in the hallway between who you were and who you're becoming, when the doors are closed and the lights are dim and the answers haven't arrived, breathe. Not everything sacred comes with certainty, but everything sacred comes with guidance if you're willing to trust. That still small voice within you, that's not your imagination, that's your compass, that's your alignment. And it's speaking to you always, in the quiet moments, in the tears you don't understand, in the moments that make no sense to the world, follow that voice. Even when others can't hear it, especially then. For the truth is, not everyone will understand your journey, but they don't need to. It was never their path to walk. You are not here to be understood, you are here to be aligned. You are not here to control the plan, you are here to trust the current. Life is not about knowing what's next. It's about honoring what's now, and in the now is everything you need to grow. Let go of the need to see the entire staircase. Just take the next step. The path will appear as you walk it. The plan will reveal itself not to the mind that demands it, but to the heart that surrenders. Stop gripping so tightly to your idea of how things should look. The universe doesn't work in straight lines. It flows in spirals, in symbols, in synchronicities. And just because it's not unfolding the way you imagined doesn't mean it's not unfolding exactly as it should. There is a season for planting and a season for harvesting, but in between there is a season of waiting, a season of stillness, a time when nothing makes sense and yet everything is being rearranged. You are in the divine waiting room. And just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it won't. It simply means the room you're about to enter requires a different version of you. That's why you've been asked to release, to surrender, to let go of what you thought was permanent, because the plan requires space. And sometimes the universe will remove what you cling to, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You were never meant to build your identity on what can be taken. Your true self is not the job, the relationship, the title, the story. Your true self is eternal. It cannot be lost. And when all else falls away, what remains is truth. So don't fear the unraveling. Don't curse the silence. There is sacredness in the unknown. There is design in the delay. And if you could zoom out far enough, if you could see what your soul sees, you'd fall to your knees in gratitude. You'd weep with relief. You'd laugh at your worries. You'd realize every step, even the ones you questioned most, brought you home. And so I say to you, as gently and firmly as I can, Trust it. Trust the pauses, trust the detours, trust the people who leave, trust the doors that don't open, trust the timing that feels too slow, trust the whispers more than the noise. Trust the silence more than the scream. Trust the plan even when you can't see it, especially then. Because you are not forgotten, you are not being punished, you are being prepared. And when the preparation feels like pain, let yourself remember this. The soul speaks in symbols, not explanations. It moves through experience, not reasoning. So if life has taken something from you, it has not done so in cruelty, it has done so in alignment. What the ego sees as loss, the soul recognizes as clearing. What your eyes may not yet see is that you're being emptied, not to be diminished, but to be filled anew. The plan is not always logical, but it is always luminous. It is the light behind the storm, the current beneath the chaos. It leads you into places your mind would never choose, but that your heart will one day thank you for. Because there are truths the soul can only touch in stillness. There are awakenings that only happen in the dark. And though your instinct may be to flee discomfort, healing lives inside the discomfort you are willing to face. You don't need all the answers to move forward. You need only the willingness to walk in faith, to say yes to the mystery, to bow to the unknown not as an enemy but as a teacher. There is no true transformation without surrender, no real peace without release. Trust does not mean you understand. Trust means you allow. You allow the unfolding to teach you, to remake you, to break you open in all the right places. There is no wasted season in the eyes of the divine. Even in your waiting, you are growing. Even in your confusion, you are being led. The moments that stretch you beyond what you thought you could bear are often the ones that reveal your truest self, the self beneath the noise, the self beyond the roles, the self that remembers its eternal origin. That self doesn't need to see the plan to know it's safe. It knows it is the plan. You see, you are not separate from the intelligence of the universe. You are not some lost being trying to find your way back to God. You are not missing anything. You are not late. You are not behind. You are the presence of source in motion. You are the breath of the infinite in human form. And the very moment you surrender the illusion of control, you open the floodgates of support. Because the plan was never built around your ego, it was designed to awaken your spirit. The ego wants certainty, the soul wants expansion. And so life will not always feel safe to the ego, but it will always be sacred to the soul. Your disappointments are not punishments. They are instructions. And every instruction is whispered in the language of the heart. Listen deeply, not with your ears, but with your being. The truth is never loud. It comes softly, like a breeze moving across the stillness of a lake. You don't chase truth, you become still enough to receive it. There will be moments when the wind changes suddenly, when the ground beneath you trembles, when the walls you leaned on crumble like paper. In those moments, let go of the idea that life has gone wrong. Let go of the illusion that you were ever fully in control. What is falling away was never yours to hold forever. What remains after the storm, that is what's real. And I want to tell you this, with every fiber of my being, you are not alone in the waiting. Every soul that has walked this earth has walked through the valley of not knowing. Even the enlightened have cried in the dark, even the awakened have doubted. So don't shame your uncertainty, see it as holy ground. See your doubt as a doorway, not a detour. Let your questions become your teachers. Because you were never meant to have all the answers. You were meant to become a space where love could answer through you. And love, the truest love, doesn't always give you clarity right away. Sometimes it gives you depth, sometimes it gives you resilience. Sometimes it gives you nothing but a soft inner voice saying, keep going, I am here. When the outer world feels barren, when nothing makes sense, when your prayers seem to echo into a void, return to that voice, that knowing within you, that stillness that cannot be shaken. There is a center in you that has never been wounded, a core of calm beneath every storm, and from that place you will rise, not because you forced it, but because you surrendered to what was already rising in you. You don't need to see the next 10 steps. The path is not revealed in its entirety because it is not walked with the mind, it is walked with the soul. And the soul walks not in certainty, but in wonder, not in timelines, but in trust. Every time you choose presence over panic, acceptance over resistance, faith over fear, you align with that higher path. You come into harmony with the plan you were born to walk. This life is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a mystery to be embraced. And mystery is not the absence of meaning, it is the fullness of meaning beyond the mind's grasp. So rest your weary thinking. Let your intellect bow to your intuition. Let your striving dissolve into softness. There is a plan, beloved. You don't always have to see it. You only need to be it. The tree does not grow by understanding the Sunday. It grows by opening to it. And you too are meant to grow not by dissecting the divine, but by opening your heart to it. There is light streaming toward you even now. There are roots growing even when you feel still. Trust that the seeds you've planted in faith will bloom when the season is right. And if the night feels too long, let it be long. Let it be sacred. You are not being buried, you are being planted. And in that planting, in that sacred burial beneath the surface of all things seen, something miraculous begins to happen. A soft unraveling, a letting go of all that was never truly you, the masks, the timelines, the constant trying. You begin to remember that your worth was never tied to your progress. Your value never depended on how clearly you could map the road ahead. You begin to feel quietly, humbly that your very presence is enough. Because, dear soul, this life is not a test you must pass. It is a dance you are meant to feel. And sometimes the music is loud and joyful, and sometimes it is faint, barely perceptible beneath the noise of your worry, but it is always there, playing, calling you inward, asking you not to control the rhythm, but to surrender to it, to trust that even the steps that feel uncertain are still part of the choreography. The plan is not always pretty. It does not always arrive wrapped in clarity. Sometimes it shows up as confusion, as loss, as the door you wanted to walk through locking itself just before you reached it. And in those moments, your old self will scream for answers, will demand reasons. But the awakened self, the soul self, will whisper instead, let go. Something greater is coming. You see, there are delays that protect your destiny. There are endings that save your soul. And there are unanswered prayers that are actually grace in disguise. You cannot always see it in the moment. In the moment, it hurts. In the moment, it feels like rejection. But from the higher view, from the seat of your soul, it is redirection, recalibration, realignment with the truth of who you really are. And who you are is not broken. Who you are is not lost. Who you are is a divine expression of infinite intelligence, learning how to remember itself. Every challenge you face is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of your becoming. The fire in your life is not there to destroy you. It is there to burn away the illusion that you are ever less than whole. So when it all feels like too much, come back to this breath, this moment, this now. The ego lives in the future, and the past, it feeds on what was and what could be, but the soul lives in now. And in the now, there is no fear. In the now, there is only presence. There is only breath. There is only the awareness that you are still here, and that means the plan is still unfolding. The more you return to now, the more you align with the flow. And in that flow, you stop pushing, you stop striving, you start trusting. You start remembering that you are already carried, already guided, already enough. The universe is not demanding you to prove your worth, it's inviting you to remember it. And when you remember, when you really remember, something shifts. You no longer need to see around every corner. You no longer need every answer laid out in neat lines. You start to feel the sacred rhythm of surrender. You begin to see with new eyes, the ones that don't ask, what's next, but instead ask, what is here now? What is here now, waiting for your attention? What lesson, what healing, what expansion is this moment offering you, disguised beneath the surface? Look not with fear, but with faith. Because when you look through the lens of trust, even the darkest moment reveals its hidden light. This trust is not passive, it is the most courageous act of your soul. It is the audacity to keep loving, even when you've been hurt, to keep opening, even when you've been closed, to keep walking, even when you can't see the path. It is not weak to surrender. It is divine strength. The kind of strength that comes not from force, but from alignment. And yes, you will forget. You will fall back into the mind's illusions. You will crave control. You will feel fear. But each time, you can return. You can realign. You can remember, you don't have to carry it all. You never did. You are not the planner. You are the participant in something far wiser than your mind could ever grasp. The moon does not control the tide, it simply responds to the pull. The flower does not force itself to bloom, it opens when the sun calls it. And you, dear one, are just the same. You are not here to force. You are here to allow, to say yes, to release your grip on how you think it should be and step into the peace of Howard Island, because the peace doesn't come when you figure it all out. It comes when you stop needing to, when you no longer trade the joy of this moment for the illusion of a controlled future. When you realize that the mystery is not your enemy, it is your sanctuary. It is the place where all things are born. So if you find yourself in a place where nothing makes sense, where the plan feels absent, where clarity is nowhere to be found, good. You are in sacred territory. You are being invited to step beyond your understanding and into your essence. You are being asked to live from your spirit, not your script. And your spirit knows the way, even when your eyes do not. So let the mind rest now. Let it settle like sediment in a still lake. You do not need to think your way into alignment. You need only feel your way back home. There is no pressure here, no performance, just a soft returning to your center. The place within you that is always known, long before words, that something sacred is holding you, guiding you, becoming you. You are never meant to carry the burden of clarity alone. That is the role of the divine. Your task is not to define the destination, but to bring your full presence to the step you're on. Even when that step feels uncertain, even when it leads you through valleys you did not choose, for the valleys are not punishment, they are deepening. They are the fertile grounds where humility, trust, and grace take root. Sometimes life will ask you to walk blind, to move without a map, to release every plan you so carefully crafted, not because it wants to watch you fall, but because it wants to teach you how to fly without wings you can see, how to rest in an invisible wind that lifts only when you stop resisting it. You may feel empty in those moments, but it is a holy emptiness, the kind that makes room for truth. And truth, when it arrives, doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it simply enters you quietly like light through a crack in the wall. Suddenly, what felt like despair begins to soften. What seemed like the end begins to feel like a beginning disguised. You find yourself smiling, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped needing it to be. You've remembered the peace that has nothing to do with circumstances and everything to do with surrender. Trust, then, is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of purpose. Even when you are aching, even when your knees hit the ground, the universe is not absent. It is present in the ache. It is whispering through the tears. This is the shedding. This is the rebirth. And if you allow it, the very pain you tried to escape will become the doorway you walk through to your most radiant self. For the plan is not simply about outcomes, it is about becoming. It's not just about where you end up, it's about who you are on the journey. And you, dear soul, are not here to chase perfection. You are here to remember wholeness. To remember that nothing real can be taken from you and nothing false can truly sustain you. You are here to drop the mask and step into your sacred nakedness, the divine self that needs no decoration to be worthy. And how freeing it is when you stop trying to make everything happen and instead allow life to meet you where you are. To drop the heavy armor of control and simply say, I trust. Not as a last resort, but as your first response. Not as something to reach for in crisis, but as the posture of your spirit. A trust so deep that even the chaos becomes holy. This is not passivity, it is powerful receptivity. It is aligning your will with the will of the infinite and knowing that your soul's blueprint is not a product of your fears, but a design of love. There is no corner of your path that has been forgotten, no chapter of your story that is wasted. Even the parts you wish you could erase are threads in the sacred tapestry of your unfolding. And what a beautiful unfolding at Island. Not neat, not linear, not always understood by the world, but glorious in its honesty, authentic in its messiness. You are not here to impress, you are here to express, to embody, to reflect the divine, not by being flawless, but by being real, by being awake, by being willing to walk through the dark with your heart still open. The plan was never to make you perfect in the eyes of others. The plan was to awaken you to the perfection that lives behind your eyes, to help you see yourself as the universe sees you, radiant, whole, evolving, divine. You don't need to do more to become that. You need only remove what blocks you from seeing that it's already true. And so, let life remove it. Let life peel back what no longer serves. Let it take the roles you outgrew, the stories that kept you small, the expectations that made you forget your light. Don't cling to what is leaving. Don't mourn the false security of the known. What you release makes room for what is real, for what has always been yours. The path ahead may not be visible, but the presence within you is unshakable. It is the spark of God breathing through your being, guiding you not through logic, but through resonance, through intuition, through a peace that passes understanding. Trust that. Follow that. The world may ask you to justify your path, but your soul only asks you to walk it quietly, boldly, with love. Not everyone will see the plan. They don't have to. It wasn't given to them. It was whispered into your heart, into your dreams, into the quiet moments when you were too still to pretend. So stop pretending now. Let the truth breathe through you. Let the mystery be enough. Let your trust become the sanctuary where your soul finally rests. And as you rest in that sanctuary where striving ends and surrender begins, you begin to feel something ancient stirring, a kind of remembering, not in the mind, but in the marrow of your being. A knowing that was never taught to you because it was never lost. You begin to recall that life isn't something happening to you. Life is happening through you, with you, for you. Every moment, every breath, every detour is a brushstroke in the great masterpiece of your soul's becoming, and you don't need to step back to see it all. You only need to trust that the hand holding the brush knows exactly what it's doing. Even the colors you never would have chosen, even the lines that feel like mistakes, they belong. They all belong. And as you stand in the middle of your becoming, you may not always feel graceful. You may wobble, you may question, you may want to turn back, but remember this: growth is not graceful. It is sacredly messy, like birth, like the tide reshaping the shore, like the tree surrendering its leaves for a season it cannot yet see. You are not broken in these moments. You are becoming whole. You see, we've been taught to fear the unknown, to label the unclear as danger. But what if the unknown is not a void, but a womb? What if the darkness isn't a sign that you're lost, but a space where the seeds of your next becoming are gestating? Can you rest there? Can you trust that not everything growing shows itself on the surface? The universe doesn't rush, and neither must you. Time is not your enemy. Time is the sacred unfolding of your becoming. Even delays serve the dance. Even silence sings if you know how to listen. So lean into this moment with reverence, not as a stepping stone to something else, but as the sacred place at Already Island. You have never been outside the plan, not for one moment, not even in your wandering, not even in your doubt. The soul doesn't lose its way, it expands by walking it. Every step you've taken, especially the ones that felt like failure, have deepened your capacity to hold what's coming. Because here's the truth: your soul is preparing to carry more light, more peace, more love. But to carry more, you must release more. You must unclench the fists of control and open your palms to receive. You must shed the armor of certainty and let the wind touch your bare spirit. That is the trust you are being asked to embody. Not the trust that says, everything will go according to my plan, but the trust that says, even if it doesn't, I will still be held. That is power. That is surrender. That is awakening. And when you live like this, when you walk through your days aligned with this inner trust, something shifts. People feel it. Life responds to it. The chaos around you may continue, but the chaos within you quiets. Because your center is no longer negotiable. Your peace is no longer circumstantial. You have stopped seeking evidence in the external and have come home to the wisdom that has always lived within you. And that wisdom says you don't have to push the river. You are the river. You don't have to chase the wind. You are the wind. You don't have to fear the path. You are the path. Let that settle. Let it breathe through you. You are not waiting for the plan to begin. You are the plan becoming conscious of itself. And the more conscious you become, the less you need to force, the less you grasp, the more you allow. And allowing isn't weakness, it's alignment. It's the quiet courage to trust what you feel more than what you fear. You are being led, always. Not through loud declarations or grand signs, but through whispers, through intuition, through the soft magnetism of what resonates, what draws you, not in anxiety, but in peace. Follow that. That is your map. And remember, the mind will question, but the soul will recognize. Recognition does not come through analysis. It comes through resonance. The heart does not calculate truth, it feels it. So let your life be guided not by fear disguised as practicality, but by love disguised as curiosity. That is the energy of alignment. When you live from that energy, The destination no longer matters as much. You stop measuring your life by outcomes and start honoring it as a sacred experience. One breath, one moment, one surrendered heartbeat at a time. Because the truth is, you can't always see the plan, but you can feel the presence of the one who designed it. And that presence is not separate from you. It is you in your purest form. In your most open moment, in your keenest yes. And now, as we near the quiet closing of this inner pilgrimage, breathe once more slowly, deeply, not to prepare for an ending, but to honor a return to what was never lost. A return to the unshakable truth that has followed you in silence since the beginning. You are not wandering aimlessly, you are walking divinely. Even when you cannot see the map, the path is unfolding beneath your feet with every surrendered step. The plan was never about control, it was always about communion. Communion with your highest self, with Source, with the rhythm of life itself. And the more you let go, the more you tune in. The more you release the illusion of needing to know, the more you feel the presence of what already knows through you. That is where peace lives. Not in knowing, but in trusting. Not in arrival, but in alignment. Let your life no longer be a reaction to fear, but a devotion to faith. A faith not built on dogma or demand, but on direct experience, on the felt sense that you are connected to everything. That the same intelligence that turns seeds into forests and tides into oceans lives inside you. And it is not confused, it is not late, it is not overwhelmed, it is sure, it is steady. And it is lovingly orchestrating every turn, every pause, every breath of your becoming. So if you feel weary, rest in that knowing. If you feel lost, soften into it. You are not being asked to fix the plan. You are being asked to trust the perfection of its unfolding. And when the mind returns, with its questions and doubts and demands for clarity, smile at it, hold it gently. Then turn your gaze inward once more and ask, what in this moment is asking to be trusted? And listen, because life will answer, maybe not in the way you expect, but always in the way your soul needs. The answers are not loud, they are sacred. They appear in the spaces you've learned to honor, in the breath you didn't rush, in the silence you didn't fear, in the step you took without knowing where it would lead. That step is the plan. That moment is the plan. You are the plan. And the more you trust it, the more you illuminate it, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. Because when one person lives in trust, it ripples. When one soul chooses alignment over anxiety, love over fear, surrender over control, it shifts something in the whole. You become a living example of what it means to embody peace, to live the unseen with reverence, to walk through life not grasping for guarantees, but radiating faith. This is your invitation to live as one who trusts, not naively, but deeply, not blindly, but boldly, to walk into the unknown not as a victim of uncertainty, but as a co-creator with it. Because the unknown is not darkness, it is the womb of all light yet to be born, and you, beloved, are a midwife of that light. You are not here to predict the future. You are here to participate in its unfolding. So hold your heart open, let your spirit breathe. And remember this, you do not need to see the whole picture to be part of its beauty. You do not need to understand the design to trust the designer. The plan is loving, the plan is wise. And even now, as you listen to these words, it is alive within you. You can't always see the plan, but you can feel it. In the quiet courage to keep going, in the peace that returns when you stop resisting, in the soft clarity that whispers, you are exactly where you're meant to be. So exhale and trust it, because the plan has never once let go of you, and it never will.
In a world that never stops moving, stillness becomes the rarest form of wisdom. We are taught to chase, to climb, to hustle, to conquer. But the soul, your eternal essence, is not impressed by noise. It doesn't race, it doesn't strive, it doesn't scream, it whispers. And in the hush between your thoughts, in the quiet after the questions, that's where the soul begins to speak. Clarity is not something you achieve, it's something you remember. You were born with it, wrapped in simplicity, bathed in presence, untouched by confusion. But as the world's volume turned up, as expectations piled upon you, like bricks on the chest of your spirit, the clarity was buried beneath it all. Not lost, just waiting. Waiting for you to be still enough to feel it again. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness. It is the moment when you are no longer doing life, but being life. And in that being, the fog lifts. You begin to see, not with the eyes, but with the heart. Not with logic, but with knowing. The kind of knowing that doesn't require proof because it is truth. Most people confuse clarity with answers. They think they'll feel clear once they figure it all out, once the past is explained, the future guaranteed, the pain justified. But clarity is not born in solving. It is born in surrender. When you stop clenching the steering wheel of your life so tightly, when you stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world, something miraculous happens, peace walks in. And where peace goes, clarity follows. Let us remember the truth known by sages and saints. You are not here to figure life out. You are here to feel it, to open to it, to soften into it like water returning to the sea. The need for control is the ego's obsession, but the soul has no such hunger. It doesn't need to control. It already belongs. It doesn't need to prove it already is. It doesn't need to race. It already rests. Your inner chaos is not because life is chaotic. It's because you've been avoiding the sacred space within you, the silence. You've been filling every crack in your day with noise, distraction, validation. But clarity doesn't rise through effort. It rises through stillness. It doesn't come from pushing. It comes from pausing. And in that pause, you meet yourself again. You were never meant to carry the world on your shoulders. The world is not yours to control. It's yours to experience, to love, to witness, and to let pass through you like wind through an open field. When you sit in stillness, you remember this. You remember that life is not a storm to be survived, but a breeze to be felt. And in feeling it fully, you return to the truth that you were never disconnected, just distracted. Distraction is the greatest thief of clarity, not because it takes something from you, but because it turns your gaze away from what was always there. Like the sun hidden behind clouds, your light never left. It was only obscured by thought, fear, busyness. And when you finally get still, the clouds part, not all at once, but gently, respectfully, like a curtain rising to reveal your own divinity waiting patiently behind the veil. The stillness does not shout, it does not force, it invites, and it waits, always waits for you to accept. Not when the to-do list is done, not when the circumstances are perfect, but now in the breath you are taking, now in the space between your thoughts, now in the sacred pause where the mind rests and the soul wakes. And in this waking, something changes. You stop asking life to be different. You stop begging the moment to become something else. You begin instead to listen. To listen not with your ears, but with your entire being. You begin to hear the language of the soul, the language of stillness, and it tells you what no amount of striving could ever reveal. That you are safe, that you are loved, that you are already whole. Stillness is not a task. It is a homecoming, a return, a remembrance of who you were before the world told you who you should be. It is the falling away of every label, every mask, every identity constructed from fear. And as it all falls, what remains is essence. What remains is God not outside you, but in you. As you, moving through you, breathing you, being you. And in this sacred space, clarity is no longer something you seek. It becomes what you are. Let the world keep spinning. Let the chaos outside dance its wild, unpredictable dance. You don't need to control the storm. You only need to find the eye of it, the center. And that center is always still, that center is always you. So sit, breathe, be, and in that stillness, let the illusions dissolve. Let the old stories, the ones that said you're not enough, not worthy, not capable, let them fall like leaves in autumn, no longer needed for the soul's blooming. You are not your past. You are not your fear. You are not the noise of the world. You are the silence beneath it. You are the space between the notes, the rhythm that gives the music its meaning. You see now why clarity cannot be forced, why it resists the grasping of the mind and instead flows through the openness of the heart. Because clarity is not information, it is transformation. It does not fill you, it empties you. And in that emptiness, you finally feel light enough to rise. You become like a feather surrendered to the wind, not passive, not powerless, but free. Free from the illusion that you need to have it all figured out. Free from the belief that healing requires effort. Free from the ego's insistence that you must earn peace. You don't earn peace, you return to it. You don't achieve clarity, you allow it. And all of it begins in stillness. So if you are weary, sit. If you are confused, sit. If you are broken, grieving, lost, overwhelmed, sit. Not to escape, not to avoid, but to arrive. Stillness is the most radical arrival. It is where you meet life without agenda, where you stop trying to be anything and remember you are already everything. In stillness, the soul speaks, and it speaks in a language beyond words, a language made of feeling, of knowing, of being. And what it whispers is this: you are already home. What if the very thing you've been searching for has been searching for you too, not in the noise, not in the chase, but in the quiet you keep avoiding? What if stillness is not just a spiritual practice, but a doorway, a sacred threshold where the divine and the human meet, where the veil thins and truth is no longer something you read about, but something you feel vibrating through the marrow of your being? There's a reason the great mystics sat in silence. There's a reason the prophets wandered the desert. There's a reason the sages withdrew from the noise of cities and climbed mountains to find God. It's not because the divine is far. It's because the world is loud, too loud to hear the subtle beauty of the eternal that whispers from within, too loud to feel the sacred pulse of presence moving in every breath, too loud to hear the soul say, I'm still here. I never left. You just forgot how to listen. You don't need a new path. You need a deeper presence. You don't need to run forward. You need to fall inward, into the holy quiet where your spirit waits patiently behind the storm of your thoughts, into the inner sanctuary where truth does not arrive dressed in certainty, but in peace. And that peace, that gentle presence, is the language of clarity. It does not bark orders or deliver perfect blueprints. It simply clears the debris so the light can shine again. And you have always been that light. The confusion, the anxiety, the overthinking, those are just clouds. And clouds, no matter how dark, can never extinguish the sun. The sun just waits. Still, constant, glowing behind the storm, your soul is that sun. Not in need of fixing, just waiting to be seen again. The world has conditioned you to think answers are earned by effort, that truth is something you must chase, something out there just beyond your reach. But the spiritual life is not about chasing anything. It is about remembering what is already within. It is the sacred reversal, the path not of gaining, but of shedding, of unlearning the noise. So you can return to the knowing. And it takes courage to be still. It takes courage to stop distracting yourself with the next thing, the next goal, the next identity. Because when you finally sit in silence, you meet yourself, not the self you show the world, not the self you've polished and performed, but the raw, trembling, holy self that has been whispering beneath the surface all along. Stillness is not easy. It confronts, it reveals, it humbles, it strips away everything that is false. It forces you to see the parts of yourself you've buried beneath achievement and validation. But it is in this seeing, this honest, sacred witnessing that you begin to return home. And that homecoming is clarity. Not the clarity that gives you all the answers, but the clarity that says, you don't need them, you already are the answer. There's a kind of wisdom that lives in the quiet. It cannot be found in books or sermons or lectures. It is not taught, it is remembered. It is the wisdom of the trees that do not try to grow, but grow. the rivers that do not try to flow but flow, the stars that do not try to shine but shine. What makes them divine is not effort, but essence. And what makes you divine is not your doing, but your being. You are the tree, you are the river, you are the star, and you are never more aligned with the truth of life than when you are still enough to simply be. Sit with that. Let it break open the armor of your striving. Let it dissolve the illusion that your worth is somewhere ahead of you. Let it remind you that clarity is not the reward for working harder, but the revelation that comes when you finally stop. And the moment you stop, truly stop, you start to see, you see that your worth has never been in your productivity, that your value has never been in your accomplishments, that your purpose is not something you chase, but something you remember. And what you remember in the stillness is this: you are already whole. You are already held. You are already here. And here is where everything begins. When the mind gets quiet, the heart begins to speak. And it speaks in a different language, a softer one. It doesn't argue or compare or worry. It doesn't say when or if or someday. It says now. It says yes. It says I am. And this I am is the most powerful prayer you will ever whisper. It is not a begging of life to become something else. It is a full-bodied return to what already is. It is the dissolving of ego into essence. It is the surrender of resistance into rest. It is the moment you stop pushing the river and let yourself be carried. So sit. Sit like the mountain sits. Sit like the moon watches. Sit like the ocean waits. Not to escape life, but to merge with it. To merge with the still, unshaken, eternal pulse that has always been inside you. Clarity does not always come in lightning bolts. Sometimes it arrives like dew, soft, slow, and silent, but it nourishes, it renews, it awakens the parts of you that were never dead, just dormant. And in that awakening, you come alive, not as someone else, but as more fully yourself. There is no rush, there is only rhythm, the rhythm of breath, the rhythm of being, the rhythm of love that has no opposite because it was never conditional. The stillness teaches this. It shows you that underneath all your trying is a truth that never needed to be earned. You are the clarity. You are the peace. You are the stillness. And when you stop long enough to feel that, not just understand it, but truly feel it, you begin to live, not from fear, but from presence. Not from need, but from fullness. Not from ego, but from soul. And the soul, the soul does not rush. The soul knows. The soul flows. The soul rests in the silence because it remembers what the mind forgets, that God is not somewhere else. God is here in the stillness, in the breath, in the now. There's something sacred about silence that terrifies the ego. The ego feeds on noise, on proving, achieving, calculating, defending. But the soul is nourished by stillness. The soul doesn't compete. It doesn't grasp or argue, it simply is. It breathes with the universe. It aligns with the eternal. It remembers. And the more you allow yourself to be still, the more you realize how loud your life had become. Not just in volume, but in expectation. Every moment stacked with demands, every thought laced with pressure, every breath taken like it had to accomplish something. But stillness says otherwise. Stillness says, come as you are, let go of the armor, lay down the need to be more than you are in this moment. It's enough. You're enough. You see, clarity doesn't need you to be perfect. It only needs you to be present. Present enough to witness what's been underneath all along. Not the story of who you think you are, but the truth of what you've always been. The presence behind the personality, the awareness behind the thoughts, the light behind the identity. When you return to stillness, you return to yourself. Not the self shaped by fear or comparison or past wounds, but the self with a capital S, the infinite spark that existed before the world had a name for you. And that spark doesn't flicker, it burns steady, Even when the mind is in chaos, the soul remains calm. Even when life is uncertain, the spirit stays whole. But we forget. We get caught in the swirl. We mistake the turbulence of our thoughts for the truth of our being. And in that forgetting, we suffer. We chase things that cannot fill us. We climb ladders that lead nowhere. We try to quiet the noise with more noise. But the answer has never changed. The way home has never moved. It waits, always waits in the quiet. So sit in the discomfort if it's there. Sit in the emptiness if that's what rises. Sit even when the mind screams that you should be doing something, especially then. Because the moment you stop running from yourself is the moment you begin to heal. Stillness is not passive. It is the most radical form of alignment. It is choosing to return when the world tells you to run. It is saying, I trust the silence more than the shouting. And in that trust, clarity emerges. Not as a lightning strike, but as a soft unfolding like petals opening to the sun, one breath at a time. Do you feel it? That gentle remembering that you don't have to strive to be worthy. That quiet hum beneath your rib cage that says you're not broken, just buried. That sacred pull inward that whispers, stop trying, just be. That's clarity rising. That's your soul stepping forward after years of waiting for you to pause, to listen, to come home. Because the soul cannot shout over the ego. It will never fight for your attention. It will simply wait. It will wait while you exhaust yourself with proving. It will wait while you perform for love. It will wait while you carry burdens that were never yours to carry. And when you finally put them down, when you sit in the stillness long enough to hear the silence, it will gently say, welcome back. There is no punishment for forgetting, only pain. The pain of being disconnected from your own light. But that pain too is a teacher. It is not here to destroy you. It is here to guide you not toward more doing, but toward deeper being. Every ache, every doubt, every unraveling moment is a breadcrumb leading you back to the stillness where clarity lives. And when you enter that space, something sacred happens. You stop asking life for explanations. You stop begging the universe to make it make sense. You begin instead to trust. Not because you have the answers, but because you no longer need them. You begin to feel the subtle but unshakable truth that you are guided, that you are carried, that you are enough. The world outside may still be loud, but the world within becomes your sanctuary. And from that sanctuary, everything changes. Not because life changes, but because you see it differently. You see it through the eyes of presence, through the lens of love, through the truth of your soul, which was never confused, only unheard. And so you walk differently. You speak with more softness. You listen with more depth. You move with more grace. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you're no longer trying to be anything else. You are finally being what you are, a sacred thread in the fabric of existence, a note in the great song of creation, a soul remembering its light. Stillness teaches you that nothing is missing, that you don't need to chase alignment. You need only remove the noise that's hiding it. You don't need to create purpose. You need only feel the pulse of it that's always been within you. Let go of the idea that clarity is something to be earned. It is not a prize. It is a presence. It arises when you are brave enough to stop, open enough to listen, soft enough to feel. It flows in like a tide, not when you command it, but when you invite it. And it washes away everything that was never true. In the stillness, illusions dissolve, masks fall, armor melts. You become transparent to yourself. And in that transparency, there is nothing left to defend, nothing left to fix, nothing left to prove. There is only truth. And the truth is that you are already whole. You always have been. Stillness does not change your life by adding more to it. It changes your life by taking away what never belonged. The false urgency, the inherited fear, the borrowed dreams, the narratives handed to you by a world that confused motion for meaning. Stillness is the great purifier. It doesn't decorate the cage, it dissolves it. And what's left when the cage dissolves? Freedom. The kind of freedom that doesn't shout or need permission. The kind of freedom that doesn't come with flags or declarations. The kind of freedom that lives in your breath. Quiet, sacred, unmistakable. It's the freedom of no longer being pulled in 1,000 directions. The freedom of finally hearing your own voice again after years of listening to everyone else's. The freedom of remembering that you are allowed to choose peace over performance. When you begin to live from stillness, you no longer crave validation in the same way. You no longer bend yourself into versions that fit the room. You no longer ask people to fill the void that only presence can hold. Because you've tasted something deeper. You've touched the well beneath the world's thirst. You've returned to the source, not in theory, but in living, breathing reality. And from that place, everything changes. You love without attachment. You speak without trying to impress. You listen without waiting to respond. You no longer react, you respond. Because you are no longer driven by unconscious stories. You are awake now, rooted, still. Clarity strips away the unnecessary. It reveals the essence. And when you see with essence, you don't just see more clearly, you see more kindly. You look at your pain with tenderness instead of judgment. You hold your past with compassion instead of shame. You see other people's anger as fear, their cruelty as confusion, their arrogance as woundedness. And you forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Stillness births this kind of clarity. Not the kind that just makes decisions easier, but the kind that makes the heart softer. The kind that lets you walk through the same world, but with entirely new eyes, eyes that see through illusion, that recognize divine patterns in chaos, that find peace not in the absence of noise, but in the presence of awareness. There is a sacred intelligence moving through this universe. Call it God, call it source, call it life. It is not random, it is not cruel, it is precise, gentle, profoundly aware of what your soul came here to remember. But it doesn't force you. It invites you. It will not wrestle your will to the ground. It will wait. And it waits in the quiet. You want to know who you are? Then be still. Don't just sit with the question. Become the space that no longer needs to ask. That's what stillness does. It doesn't answer your questions, it dissolves them. It doesn't fix your brokenness, it reveals that you were never broken. It doesn't give you new ideas, it clears the fog so truth can rise. Like the sun rising not because it's told to, but because it's what it does. You are not here to be a performer on life's stage. You are not here to be constantly visible, constantly relevant, constantly productive. You are here to be real, to be awake, to be so rooted in truth that nothing outside you has the power to uproot you. And that kind of rootedness comes not from willpower, but from stillness. It's in stillness that you remember the rhythm of life, the inhale and exhale, the expansion and the return, the rise and the rest. You were never meant to run endlessly forward. You were designed to pause, to reflect, to listen, to let the tide carry you back inward before you reach again outward. The clarity that comes in stillness is not about making better plans. It's about no longer needing a plan to feel safe. It's about trusting the unfolding, about letting go of your white-knuckled grip on how you think it should go and leaning fully into the mystery. Because the mystery is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of grace. Do not fear the unknown. Fear missing it. Fear becoming so busy, so distracted, so addicted to noise that you never hear the invitation hiding beneath the surface of your life. The invitation to come home, not to a house, not to a person, not to a belief, but to the timeless space within you that has never been touched by fear. That place is still. That place is whole. That place is where clarity lives. And once you live from that space, the world no longer controls your peace. You no longer chase love, you become it. You no longer fear endings, you trust transitions. You no longer resist what is, you flow with it. And in that flow, everything sacred becomes visible again. The ordinary becomes holy The mundane becomes miraculous. And so the invitation remains, be still. Not because it's trendy, not because it's spiritual, but because your soul remembers the language of silence. And it's time you did too. You won't find yourself in the next breakthrough, the next relationship, the next success. You will find yourself when you stop running. When you sit in the quiet with nothing to prove, nowhere to get, no one to become. And in that sitting, you will hear the oldest truth echo through your being. You are always it. You were always enough. You are always home. So now, as the breath slows and the noise begins to fade into the background once more, you find yourself standing not at the end, but at the return. The return to what was always real, always waiting, always whispering beneath the rush of the world. This is not a conclusion. This is the moment when all the seeking dissolves and only the stillness remains. And in that stillness, everything becomes clear. You don't need to make life perfect. You don't need to fix every flaw or heal every ache before you are allowed to be at peace. You are allowed now. Not after the storm in it, not once clarity comes, but because clarity comes when you stop demanding it and begin allowing it. The stillness does not erase the journey. It blesses it. It gathers every shattered moment and folds it into a single quiet truth. Nothing was wasted. Every detour was a teacher. Every heartbreak was a mirror. Every silence you avoided was a door back to yourself. You ran, yes. You stumbled. You forgot. But the soul never left you. It simply waited. And now you are ready to listen again. And what does the soul say? It doesn't give you instructions. It doesn't hand you a map. It doesn't require that you understand. It only asks that you trust. Trust the pause. Trust the breath. Trust the invisible rhythm that life has been moving to all along, even when you couldn't hear the music. Let the stillness be your sanctuary now. Let it be your teacher, your guide, your anchor, not once in a while, but always. Let it meet you in the morning before your thoughts begin. Let it hold you at night when your fears return. Let it be the space you return to when the world demands your performance. And you remember, I am not a role. I am not an idea. I am not what others need me to be. I am presence itself. And presence does not perform. Clarity is not a light that flickers on and off depending on your worthiness. It is always shining. It is always speaking. It is we who turn away, we who drown it out. We who run, not because we are lost, but because we forgot we already belong. And now, beloved soul, you remember that silence is not empty, it is full. You remember that surrender is not weakness, it is power. You remember that the pause is not the absence of progress, it is the birth of purpose. You remember that nothing outside you needs to change for you to return home. Because home is not a place, it is a presence. And it lives in you, right here, right now. It always did. So walk on, not with certainty, but with clarity. Not with all the answers, but with the knowing that you are allowed to not know and still be deeply, beautifully whole. Speak less to convince. Listen more to understand. Create not to impress, but to express. Love, not for what it brings back to you, but for the miracle of what it brings out of you. You do not need to be louder. You need to be truer. You do not need to be seen more. You need to see more. You do not need more power. You need deeper peace. And all of it begins and ends in the stillness you were once afraid to sit in. Now you know better. Stillness is not where you lose yourself. It's where you find yourself again. Not the self the world taught you to perform, but the real self, the quiet self, the eternal self, the self that does not need to be explained, only remembered. And so let your next breath be not a rush toward answers, but a return to presence. Let your next moment be not another chase for clarity, but a sacred pause where clarity finds you. You are not here to waste time. You are here to touch eternity, and you do so every time you choose to be still. So be still now, not because the world told you to rest, but because your soul remembered it could. Let this be the moment you stop waiting to arrive and realize you already have. Let this be the end of searching and the beginning of being. Clarity has come, not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you stopped, because you listened, because you remembered who you are. And who you are is enough. Always was, always will be, and now you know it. Clarity comes in the stillness. And in that stillness, you are finally free.